Come for the tea, stay for the shade. You are listening to Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. Hello, tea sippers. Welcome to an all-new episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. This is your host, Mark Long. That's right. Get your tea, take a seat, let's spill. Hey everyone, alright, we got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and dive into some politics and some news updates. Okay, let's start with the first topic, which is the capture of Maduro, which was the president of Venezuela. And now we have Delcy Rodriguez stepping in, who was the vice president under Maduro, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, who's running Venezuela right now? I believe it's the United States, but, you know, everything's completely out of left field and coming from all directions right now. Let's take a listen.
63-year-old Nicolas Maduro was in power 12 years. In 2024, he lost his re-election bid, but remained in power and forced the winner into exile. Maduro ruled Venezuela's 28 million people as an autocrat, imprisoning his opposition and leaving the economy of an oil-rich nation in shambles. Yesterday, the U.S. Department of Justice revealed an indictment of Maduro, accusing him in a so-called narco-terrorism conspiracy.
These investigations aren't easy. They can be stressful, and they can take up a lot of time. This one, 10 plus years. And you have
One of the investigators at the center of the case was Sandy Gonzalez. He served 25 years in the Drug Enforcement Administration, part of that in Venezuela, and investigating Maduro.
Close to 20 years ago, DEA, the Special Operations Division, started looking at high-level drug trafficking in Venezuela. And it eventually led to high-ranking military, police officials in Venezuela, and ultimately government officials.
And Maduro was among them.
Yes.
What was the most significant evidence against Maduro?
It's a state-sponsored drug trafficking organization, so it's a massive conspiracy. And what I mean by that is not everybody is going to be holding the kilos of cocaine. But in a conspiracy, you link everybody together that's part of the chain. Maduro was part of that chain, first as a minister of foreign affairs and then later as a president. So when you're the president of a country and you are giving the green light to engage in this activity, and you're putting people in critical positions, in governors, ministers, heads of agencies, and allowing them to carry out these drug trafficking activities, you're just as guilty as the person making the drugs and transporting the drugs.
Okay, so let's get into it. So basically, Maduro was captured. Obviously, what happened over the past couple of days. And right now they have Delcy Rodriguez, who is their current vice president, who is in charge. And she's not willing to back down from Trump, but she changed her tune recently because Donald Trump is actually issuing some potential warrants to, you know, arrest her and any kind of official that stands in the United States' way in terms of bringing back sovereignty and stability to Venezuela. Now, that's what the administration is saying. Trump also says that Rodriguez is willing to do what we think is necessary, which is fueling speculation about U.S. influence on things and how things go. And also, Bloomberg reported that Trump said that the United States is going to run Venezuela until a transition is possible. So with that said, we know the Venezuelan militaries right now is currently backing their current vice president who has stepped in. But Delcy is pretty much insists that Maduro is the only president, and she is very vocal and critical of the United States and the Trump administration. But most importantly, she's very critical about the way that this capture was carried out. Let's take a quick listen to what the ladies on The View have to say, because part of what I'm getting from this is that maybe there is a reason that this was done, but if it wasn't done in the right way, there could be a legality to that. However, Maduro is a very, very bad person, and I think that deserves some more attention. Let's take a listen.
In my view, this is completely 100% illegal.
Well, so I do think, oh, go ahead. Look, I don't think this is at all about the Venezuelan people.
Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about the Venezuelan people. If he did, he wouldn't be taking away temporary protected status from 600,000. He wouldn't be arresting the Venezuelans that are seeking asylum here. He wouldn't be maligning the entire community and sending hundreds of Venezuelans to a hellhole prison in El Salvador. I don't think Donald Trump gives a damn about drugs. If he did, he would not have pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was serving 45 years in federal prison for having brought 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. I think this is a lot about Donald Trump's ego. I think he thought it was going to be easier to get rid of Maduro. I don't know that he thought it was going to take 4.5 months and 1/4 of the Navy arsenal and a cost of over $1 billion to do this. I don't think this is regime change because the regime is still there. He got rid of the head. He got rid of the titular head, which is Maduro, and it's the biggest trophy there is. But
the
all
vice
of
president is still there.
And the vice
president is now president.
Well,
and
I refuse
arguably
to
worse-
call her
worse
either
bad.
because you see, Maduro, so the U.S. government under Biden and under Trump have said they don't recognize Maduro as the legitimate president of the United States because he stole the elections.
Right.
And so if we don't recognize him as president, how in the hell can then we turn around and recognize his vice president as vice president and now interim president?
Do you
and
think
as
it's
to
about
your
the oil?
question, I think it's about the oil. Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida. The Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years. When we see him in handcuffs and held to some sort of accountability, it brought me into tears. It brought me great joy. And, you know, I live in South Florida.
But are you okay with the way that it was done?
But you can, I think both things can be true.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on right now. Obviously, the way that Donald Trump handled this capture, like we mentioned before, was completely out of left field and required deaths of, I believe it was 100 civilians or 100 officials that were working down in Venezuela just to carry out this mission. Now, the way it was handled was obviously inappropriate, but to Anna's point, the people in South Florida apparently were looking at this opportunity to take down a dictator, and Trump ran on going after Venezuela and a bunch of other countries that he just kind of despised based on the leadership there. Now, just because this is happening, I want to go a little further and say that I do believe that this is a distraction. I think this is to let Americans know that the U.S. has some toughness and that Donald Trump can put his money where his mouth is, literally if he can, but we know that's not the truth. But he can at least go after these countries that have a completely, for lack of a better word, fucked up, total oversight of their communities. Now, to go back to that, like I said, I do believe it's a distraction, but this looks like a win for many people, especially those who have to live through these regimes or know people that were captured, as Anna Navarro alluded to in The View. But I will say, let's keep our eyes close to this because I do think a lot more is coming out about this issue in particular, and if it was considered an illegal war crime on the U.S.'s part, and if the administration is doing this just because Donald Trump is trying to seize and take control over the oil, when in fact we know that there's more going on here. So we will stay kind of in a loop on this. I'm agreeing with Sunny. I do think there's a lot of illegal things happening, but we'll find out more as we learn more on this issue as the week goes on. And I do want to also say the people in Venezuela are celebrating, so there's some relief that they're feeling down there. But there's people in the U.S. that are feeling a little bit let down because, we're not being kind of completely on board with being friendly. I know that's kind of a weird thing to say. Republicans probably would disagree with me. But we're not trying to set a precedent for how situations get handled. And I know legally there should be some kind of international conduct thing or international law situation or public group or entity that can get together and have these countries have conversations so that these leaders are handled the proper way through the proper channels without having to go in and literally capture the president of another country. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so let's keep going. There's other things happening right now, and I kind of want to focus on a little bit of what Trump's response basically is to this capture. And Trump has decided to warn Greenland, Cuba, Mexico, Colombia, and Iran of possible, not necessarily conflict, but just basically either you're going to get his wrath or he's going to try to push for a way to take control. So Trump issues these waves of warnings right after the Venezuela strike, which is quite interesting. So people from the People magazine, they're saying that Trump says that nobody can really stop us in regards to hinting at future interventions. We also have Marco Rubio, who was on Meet the Press, alluding to that, people or the people of Colombia or the nation of Colombia should be careful in regards to their response and trying to seek control and step in and take power when Venezuela was just recently invaded. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. But just want to let you all know that Trump has more up his sleeve. I do think the Greenland thing is very, 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 very top of mind for him for some reason, because he feels like they have a lot of resources that the U.S. could benefit from. And we know that he has recently designated a official to have some oversight of what those negotiations look like in terms of making sure the nation becomes a part of the United States in some capacity. Now, I wanted to shift gears from Trump completely and kind of talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene's little shift here. She's going to be on The View later this week, and I believe she's going to talk more about what it looks like for her standing up for her district after leaving Congress, basically, since her time there is up. And it looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene is not willing to even call out some of her constituents because I believe she feels embarrassed by supporting. I don't know. She's weird. But she goes on Meet the Press, and Kristen Welcher asks her a question, and she gives a weird response. Take a listen.
Let me just ask you, though, because Nick Fuentes has said on his podcast, Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right. The Holocaust didn't happen. He also participated in the Charlottesville rally where demonstrators chanted, "Jews will not replace us." Senator Ted Cruz says this is a time for choosing. He says if you're embracing someone who says Hitler is cool, you are complicit in that evil. Do you think Ted Cruz has a point that you'd be complicit in that evil to support or in any way fail to denounce what Nick Fuentes has said?
Kristen, I don't know Nick Fuentes. I don't even have his phone number. He doesn't have my phone number. I spoke at a conference of his because it was largely attended by young Americans, and I care about that generation, and I went there to talk directly to them. So I really am not familiar with what Nick Fuentes says, whether it's on social media or his podcast. Nor do I pay that much attention to Ted Cruz. He routinely attacks me.
Marjorie, it's either yes or no. Like, at this point, if you're going to leave Congress, have a voice, you have enough information to know who Nick Fuentes is. None of us are besties with him either, girl. Like, do you stand by his bullshit or do you not? So, I don't know. She's being a weirdo again, being typical Marjorie Taylor Greene, using her 5 minutes of fame, doing all these interviews. And I think it's just a way to distract from the fact that the Trump regime and the administration doesn't like her, and she feels kind of like in this middle silo, this kind of like this kind of realm on her own, and which is interesting because in a way I think that's kind of what happens when you decide to leave Congress and when you go against the grain. But at the end of the day, I think she's just out there spewing. So next, I kind of wanted to talk about this last time, but I saved it for today. Is Trump too old? Because remember when Biden was president and there's so much conversation about him being too old and him running again, but isn't the current president too old? So polls show that half of the voters say that Trump, who is currently 78 years old, is too old to serve another term. And the Washington Street Journal reports of signs that Trump has been aging and he's rejecting medical advice. So he's starting to get a little bit more of that. You know, when people get older and they refuse help and that kind of thing, he's starting to do a little bit more of that. We're also seeing him starting to lash out at coverage that describes his health as decrepit. And we're seeing a lot of signs of Trump becoming more sluggish in the way he speaks. He's spending a lot more time at Mar-a-Lago. Obviously, he's been doing that since his first presidency, but he's spending a little bit more time kind of like doing his own thing and not really let's just clock it, not going for a jog, okay? Like, he thinks that playing golf is this new way of going to the gym, which y'all know how I feel about that. So, I think Trump is unhealthy, he's too old, and I don't think he should be president. I think when you reach a certain age and you are no longer able to keep up and be a fantastic leader, I think sometimes you just gotta call it and retire. And I think he's at that age where he needs to retire. I think he's too old. I think he's getting more grumpy. I think when someone is, not taking their health seriously, they shouldn't have access to the codes or anything like that. I think that's just weird, right? Wouldn't you all agree? So yeah, he needs to hang it up. Anyway, so let's move on to another topic about, just how things are going. And right now we know that the Senate is returning, and obviously, we know that there's major fights that are about to happen. We have the government funding, which obviously the big, beautiful bill, as they like to put it. I like to say it as the big, shitty bill, but that's neither here nor there. Obviously, there's going to be conversation that needs to be had on the Affordable Care Act subsidies and the election year itself. So right now, there's a lot happening, and the Hill is reporting that, things are kind of looking tense, and a lot of Congress are returning, but there's still no true sign of what is to come first and what is to pretty much make headlines in terms of major decisions after the big beautiful bill was passed by this dumb administration. But here are some 5 things to watch. So there might be a potential shutdown repeat. So the Hill is reporting that Congress is returning, as I just mentioned. But, the Senate was on the doorstep of getting the ball rolling with this 5-bill minibus situation that they had going on for, I believe it was the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder. And there's been some issues with that because senators are pushing back, especially Republicans, announcing that they reached a deal, and that does not include some of these, things that other Democrats are asking for. Additionally, there's going to be a lot of conversation about healthcare. There's going to be a lot of conversation about, I think we mentioned this already, but, what lawmakers spending less time in D.C., with the election, and going out and being in the streets and campaigning, and the mess is basically about to pursue the mess is about to pretty much unfold in 2026 with the election and these passionate parties and people completely rejecting how things are right now with the economy. It should be interesting going into this year. Everybody hang tight. I know it's going to be a lot to process. I will try to keep you all as updated as much as possible, and as soon as things hit the fan, we will talk about it here on the podcast. To end things, I have a few things I want to end with. So Tim Walz is not running for a third term. NBC reports that Walz announces that he will not seek a third term as the Minnesota governor, and Senator Amy Klobuchar is considering a run. Like, that's something that has been floating around. But Walz has been citing that it's been political distractions and other investigations that have made it too much for him to take on another time, and also he believes that, there should be some term limits and give a new way for some more leadership. So kudos to Walz for doing his thing and being a very likable governor for the state of Minnesota. Now, to end on some positive notes, CNN reports that over 200 medical students in Gaza graduated despite 2 years of war that destroyed their universities. 168 doctors received specialist certifications in front of the ruins of Al-Shifa Hospital. And ABC reports that universities began reopening after prolonged conflict. That's actually really great news. The fact that people are still able to be resilient and go get their education and do great things beyond tragedy is something that is definitely worth celebrating, and I hope that they have a very, very, very great start to their year and that they make changes in the world for the positive and for the best. Thank you all for listening. Hey tea sippers, I know you've been waiting for that reality tea to get spilled, and here it is. You know I give it to you every time. So I wanted to jump right in. So there's a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get into these Bravo streets. The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City reunion trailer just dropped, and I know you all are gonna gag. So how about you just take a listen?
Where's the popcorn? You don't think I would scream from the rooftops if I landed Captain Jason?
Right.
I'd be wearing a sailor suit.
Oh my goodness. That dick sucker went viral. It's not my fault people like to bring it up.
Lisa, it seems like John wants to embarrass you on camera.
I'm just personally going through something really hard myself. Can I have a minute?
Robert Jr., he's incarcerated currently.
Yes, I'd rather him be bare than dead.
Do I have more questions about Todd? I do.
So Todd and I are separated.
You lied about me.
Yeah.
But I stand by everything that I've witnessed on the plane.
False accusations. I'm not the source. Well, see, I just read a scroll. Open that. It's not okay. Are you really that disgusting? She screeched at me for 2 months.
Reached at you for 2 months.
You. Our friendship is over from this moment on. Heather.
Buckle up, Meredith.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
All right.
I didn't do anything to you.
Okay, stop.
To me, show me how you're wrong.
Stop.
Hey, good, because when we're done... No, Andy, please.
I'm walking off.
This is nuts. No, Andy. This is nuts.
That was intense. Yes, ma'am. The ladies have come to the reunion once again to clock in, and this time Andy is walking off the stage, child. So let's just go ahead and dive right deep into it. So obviously that was just some audio from the trailer that just dropped about the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Andy walked off at the end, but we also know that Meredith is in the hot seat. She's sitting by Andy alongside Bronwyn, who looked amazing, by the way. Also, Bronwyn was there, and she confirmed her separation from Todd at the reunion, and you can see that the ladies were just completely stunned. So there's going to be a lot to talk about with that, because what is it giving? Like, did you save this little nugget to get... Of course she did. That's how... Bronwyn knows how to work the cameras. Lisa's crying about her marriage once again. You know, there's some talk about John embarrassing her and her back and forth with her husband. I don't know what that's about. Whitney is falling all out of sorts because of conversation about her marriage being brought up. Mary is crying about her son being in jail. And we see Heather and Meredith getting back into it. And we know that their friendship pretty much looks fractured at this point. So I don't know what that means. If Heather is going to be production and try to find her best way to get rid of Meredith. But now, insert Monica. Because I feel like Meredith has felt to the same spell that Monica has felt to, which obviously, you know, you can compare atrocities and how people communicate, but I don't know. I feel like this reunion is going to be eye-opening for the ladies, and it's going to be interesting to see the tides turn. Also, Brittany was seen storming off at the reunion, so get ready, y'all. Salt Lake City is always going to be giving, and is always going to be spreading all the kind of reality TV moments that we need to replay over and over again. Brittany has been a great addition to the show, along with the other housewives, Bronwyn and Angie K. And we still have the Fab Five that have been there from the beginning. I don't know how I feel about Jen Shaw coming back, but that's the story for later. I'll hold that off until after this reunion airs, because there's going to be a lot that we need to get into. For example, Mary's cult. So, apparently, there's been a bunch going on in the social webs regarding Mary and her church, apparently, and how it's been a cult. And that's been happening, and I say social webs because that's been going around since the show's been on. You know, the story about her being married to her grandfather, who was actually her grandmother's husband at the time where her grandmother was married to him. She passed away. He was younger than her, and then she wanted Mary to get married to him. So people always had suspicions of there being like just weird kind of communication with her church. But TLC released a 3-part investigative series called The Cult of the Real Housewife. And it's basically reigniting this allegation of it being a cult, while also bringing ex-members of her church to talk about the cult-like behavior, the financial exploitation, and some spiritual manipulation that goes on. There's also a bunch of recordings that are being played, a lot that include mind control, a lot that include other claims such as physical abuse, additionally demanding unpaid labor from congregants. Additionally, extramarital affairs are mentioned, along with this pressure to give large sums of money from, you know, from one family member to another without other family members getting access to money. So Mary has obviously denied all these allegations, but People Magazine has confirmed that the church is still operating. And obviously it was filmed this season on Salt Lake City. And Mary broke her silence this year by basically saying that all these allegations are horrifying and that the documentary is just made to make her feel bad and destroy her reputation in a time where she's dealing with a lot, especially with the addiction in her family with her son. So, it's a lot to get to. Mary has a lot going on in her life, obviously personally, but it's interesting that people are going above and beyond to prove that there is a lot to it than what people might not see when those cameras are down. So, I'm not saying that Mary is involved in a cult. I'm just saying I'm not very religious. I guess I'm considered spiritual. I was raised Christian, but I don't know. We'll keep our eyes close to this, because I do think that if there is some wrongdoing, it does need to be exposed. If you decide to come on reality TV, your life is out there for people to critique. So, all right, let's shift gears. I want to move into the Real Housewives of Potomac. Now, let's get into this. So, Angel had the ladies come out to Colorado, and she's basically trying her best to, for lack of a better word, chin check the other ladies, because she felt that she was brought in. Let me just start from the beginning. Angel came in this season really, really great. I liked Angel right off the bat. She stood her own ground. She had this very level-headed personality, and she was willing to confront Kay from this chin check statement that came up. But things started to kind of derail, because I feel like her and Kay have this unspoken rule that they're friends to the end. What Angel should have done coming into the show was continue that trajectory of being independent in thought and just being who she is and being outspoken, while also being mature and being kind of laid back in her communication and just being fabulous. But instead, she started to lean into this, well, I don't like you because you're standoffish and blah, 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 blah. And I honestly would have let the comment about the picture kind of just roll off me. Like, obviously be like, well, you're being a hater, Giselle, and just keep it pushing. We all use auto-tune. Who gives a fuck? But it was the crying. It was the not having confidence. I feel like Angel had a perfect opportunity to really make this her season. You know what I mean? But we get to this episode, and Angel has decided to have Ashley and Giselle in a completely other room from the ladies in her home, because the ladies went on a vacation. She invited Monique and all the other ladies to Colorado, but she takes them to a different home where shit's not really working or anything. Water's not working, whatever. And then in that house, some of the ladies don't even have proper, like, living, I guess, situations, which is always kind of a shady thing that housewives do. So that's why I'm not, like, really bothered by it. But at the end of the day, so now you want to be shady? So when the ladies start to come back and clock on that ass while you're hosting this trip, hopefully she has that same energy, because I am appreciative, but there's also moments of this weird, like, Angel being smiley with Wendy, and, like, y'all don't get along, so that's weird. I don't know what's happening. Monique is, like, asking her, why aren't we staying at your house? She's not giving direct answers. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of Angel. I'm seeing other parts of Angel that I haven't seen, conveniently, now that they're in her neck of the woods in Colorado. And I would hope that maybe this could be a look-back thing for her. Because here's the thing. I don't want anybody to be eliminated from these housewife shows. I don't think, like, you should automatically fire someone unless there's a complete, like, wrongdoing or, like, bad behavior. For example, like Gretchen with the liking MAGA homophobic and transphobic things. I think that's turns for termination. Like, what are you doing? But anyway, but I think in this situation when Angel, just kind of, girl, lean into, like, trying to be a bad bitch and putting these girls in their place. And if that's who you're going to be that girl. Don't be the girl who's like, oh, but now y'all talking about me. Now, blah, 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 my pictures, this and that. And now, here's my get back. Have her get back, fine. That's what housewives do. I'm here for it, if I'm being honest. What I'm not here for is the fakery. And what I'm not here for is the late to react. Like, Angel, let's please get it together. Like, because if we're going to chin check Giselle and Ashley, you better be prepared for their wrath. Because they like to go after their husbands, families, rumors, dig stuff up. So you're next on the block, baby. They're ready for you. And I hope Angel was ready for this fight, because the fans aren't really feeling like what she's bringing to the show. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for her to see the window of, maybe Giselle and Ashley are full of shit, and maybe I can try to reemerge into the show by being the baddest bitch who has it together. And nobody will ever say that I rent my home, because I doubt. Well, evicted, or whatever they want to say. But anyway, she said she wasn't evicted, homegirl, as she likes to say. Anyway, Let's move over into another topic, because I do think Real Housewives of Potomac is really heating up. I love the episode, but I'm also hearing some drama about the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So the streets are loud, right? We already know that K. Michelle and Pinky Cole are a part of next season of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. There is no trailer that has been dropped, although there is swirling rumors about Nene Leakes returning to the Bravoverse in some capacity. Maybe not on season 17, but she'll probably make an appearance on an Ultimate Girls trip of some sort. Now, the streets have been saying that Portia and Shamia's friendship is still fractured and rocky as the season left, but there is also some more information that came out saying that they nearly came to blows while filming the new season in a different, I think they were in a different country. I don't remember where they were, child, but apparently Shamia has publicly slammed Portia's fake receipts, calling, the friendship fake and that they were never friends. And it's so weird because we kind of saw this feud heating up last season, so apparently it's going to, flatline and heat up again. I know that Kelly is Shamia's right hand, so you know that she's gonna have her back. I don't know who's I think Portia's really connected with Phaedra, obviously, and Cynthia and a couple of the other ladies, but I think this feud is really weird. I think it's a really weird feud. It's not even a feud I really care about. I'd rather see Portia with Kenya go at it. You know what I mean? And not that I want them to, but I just feel like there's more camaraderie. I feel like there's more, they have a little bit more chemistry on camera when they're bickering. I think this is a little bit different. This is personal between these ladies. They've been friends for years, right? Kind of like Kay and Angel, but you can't tell because Kay never really stands up for Angel anyway. And when she does, it's almost kind of like Angel's left out there to dry, like damn, being Kay's underling. But anyway, back to RHOA. So yeah, apparently the girls are fighting and Drew had to come in between them and hold them back, and it was this whole thing. And I really hope that Portia and Shamia get it together, because I am tired, like I just mentioned, but also it's just run stale. That's not the storyline we want to follow. Shamia's married, Portia, you're not married. Shamia's lifestyle is this, Portia, your lifestyle is that. Portia, you've been on this show forever. Just try to find something else. I want to know more about what's happening with Go Naked Hair. I want to see stands and another shop open up. That's what I want to see, Portia. I don't want to see you going back and forth with Shamia, because Shamia, right now, you scraping at, if you really sit up here arguing with Portia and going back and forth and taking y'all off-camera business on camera, we don't want to see that. We want to see real drama unfold on the show. So I'm looking forward to RHOA. I'm looking forward to Nene's return to Ultimate Girls Trip. But most importantly, I'm looking forward to seeing what these new ladies bring to the RHOA mix. Angela Oakley is obviously back. We have Drew Sidora back. Phaedra is back in the mix, along with Cynthia returning as a friend, as she should, along with the two new ladies, Portia and Shamia. So we'll see what happens. I think this season might be a hit or a miss, depending on what happens. I'm really hoping it gives us real moments like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, because RHOA, people aren't really here for it anymore, and I really want people to be here for it, but we'll see. Okay, switching gears from the Bravoverse. Okay, so let's go and talk about Canada's Drag Race. That's right, Canada's Drag Race is heating up as we're getting closer excuse me, and closer to the finale. So on Canada's Drag Race, we have a few queens that are really, really killing it, in my opinion. Excuse me, and I'm going to say what it is. Obviously, Saltina is killing it. We also have my lovely, lovely, lovely queen who I love to follow is Miss Van Gogh, who is, in my opinion, very, very Candy Muse-esque with a dash of Gottmik mixed together, but she's really stomping the competition down. I do think she's kind of opinionated to the point of her detriment at times, but we'll see more about that as the show heads closer to the finale. But my girl is also there. Ebony LaBelle. We have Cara Milk, who is kind of hit or miss for me. PM, Sammy Landry, and obviously I just went on a rant about Van Gogh. And prior to this episode, Maya Fox was eliminated along with Velma Jones. And from there, we also have our top 6 that was just competing. And let me tell you something about this top 6. I'm actually kind of happy, but I'm really, really, really excited about Ebony. And I'm really excited about Sammy and Van Gogh. I do like Cara Milk, but she's a little bit lackluster for me. And then PM, in my opinion, is a little bit more unique than Cara Milk. Just saying. But Saltina is really, really giving us the boom boom cat. She's really going in there and giving us a show. These ladies are sickening. I'm excited for next week. most importantly, they're from all over the place. They're all over Canada. We have some queens from the West Coast, some queens, obviously we have one that was just eliminated from Nova Scotia. There's also some talk about, just kind of how the show has been doing without Brad Goreski, who left the show. And I think it's been doing pretty well. I would say, like, Tracy Melchor is keeping it held down along with Brooklyn and Carson. Having Hollywood Jade there has been quite helpful, but most importantly, I think Carson Kressley really made the show unique. And having Paula Abdul in that premiere was pretty cool, too. I don't know. I think the episodes are getting better and better, and I'm looking forward to see what happens this week, and I will be excited to give you my take. Now, I want to end by talking about RuPaul's Drag Race, the US version. And oh my goodness, what a season so far. So they decided to kick off RuPaul's Drag Race season 17 with a design challenge, which was absolutely amazing. But most importantly, it was really cool, in my opinion, to get to know the queens, because I feel like we've gotten to know the queens in a certain way through their talent shows. But I think, okay, fine, talent show and nobody goes home, sure, top 2 compete, which is also great. But I like the difference. I like seeing who has the skills. I like seeing them have the camaraderie in the workroom. Cardi B was an outstanding guest judge. She gave real critiques. She was that girl. She gave personality. It felt vibrant in the room. Rue is just unbreakable. Looks amazing as always. But let's clock into these girls. So, I like all the girls. I'm just going to say that. I like all the girls. I think they have great personality. And I think this episode, Vita Von Teese, that look was tea to me. Like, girl, you shut it down with that. But Miss Nene Coco ate you up in that lip sync. Nene Coco ate you down in that lip sync. I don't care what anybody says. You looked outstanding. Now, production did not have to have her do that lip sync in that gown that beautiful gown that she made. I would have personally have liked to see a bottom 2 lip sync for it, and then they both get saved, because who sends someone home on a design challenge the first week? That would be cruel. That's like the old days of RuPaul's Drag Race. But I would have thought that would have been a nice switch. That would have been a nice feel good to the girls to get them to step their pussies up later on in the show when it comes to design. But yeah, I think the show is off to a good start. Hopefully we get some talent shows soon so we can really get to know the ladies. Kenya Pleaser is also a favorite of mine. Her look was atrocious, but I love her personality. I'm also really, really, really loving all the other ladies like I mentioned. Athena, Deanna's great. Juicy's okay. Some of the other ladies stood out to me. We'll get into more of how I feel later. I don't want to give away too much right now, but stay tuned. The Traitors also premieres this week on January 8th, Thursday, so I will be giving you my download on that. We are going to get Real Housewives stars, of course, on the show. Candace. We're also going to have, who else is going to be on the show? Lisa Rinna, I think, is on the show, along with Caroline Stanberry, Portia Williams. I think there's a few other Bravo celebrities, and obviously Monet Exchange. We have to mention the doll, baby. All right. You heard this reality tea. I bring it to you every time. You know that. Hello, and thanks for sticking around. So I kind of wanted to end this episode by talking about, things you can let go and start fresh with the new year. And, I wanted to talk about people who I draw my inspiration from. But before I get into that, I feel like sometimes when people start the New Year's, they like to talk about things they want to stop doing, or they want to be happy, or they want to be this, or they want to be that, or they want to... How about instead of saying that you want to be more happy, you just want to be less unhappy? And just kind of normalizing that the feeling of unhappiness is okay, and that there's certain feelings that you might experience, that are prevalent to everyday life and not just a year-to-year basis. And I think it's okay to set parameters on what that looks like for yourself. Excuse me. So today I wanted to leave you with 4 things, or 4, I guess, inspirational people that I am kind of trying to draw my New Year's vibes from. So the first person I wanted to mention is Kamala Harris, or Vice President Harris. She lived her entire life in the eye of the storm, and definitely with scrutiny and expectations of being the first, right? She was the first female vice president. She was the first Black and Asian vice president. She was the first woman of color to hold a campaign the way that she had to hold it with the time frame that she had left. there's a lot to say about Kamala Harris in terms of being the first, and she kind of reminds me that you don't have to control the storm to stay grounded inside the chaos. But there's always an opportunity for you to look at noise from every direction and expect it, but kind of move in a way where you're looking through the chaos around you and choosing your tone, your peace, and your pace. And I think that's the lesson that I get from her. And that's something I didn't want to take into this year, is to kind of go with the flow a little bit more, but expect people to not understand and expect there to be chaos. But I don't have to match the energy of the chaos around me. I don't have to succumb to all the noise. And I can go at things at my own pace and for my own peace and my mental health and my family. All right, moving on to another person. I would say that Sylvester from the 1970s. I don't know if you all are familiar with Sylvester. They were a disco's queen icon, as I like to call him. But in the 1970s, Sylvester wasn't just a disco icon. He was queer. He was black, gender bending. He was this force of nature in a world that wanted him to be quiet. And obviously, most of the world had no clue people like him existed. He chose joy anyway. He chose glitter. He chose to live loudly, and he chose that joy is not frivolous. He also kind of reinvented this wheel of explaining, without saying much words about it, always, is that joy is survival and it's freedom. And I think he embodied so much of what the 70s was about, of just expressing yourself after having this opportunity to live off the backs of those who had to advocate for equal rights. And I think Sylvester is the embodiment of how a lot of people want to exist today. And him being this gender-bending force in nature, I think nowadays we would probably say kind of gender fluid or what have you. But to be that creative and to be out in a time where scrutiny of being who you are is the epitome of being the reject of society is just inspiring to me. I think it speaks volumes to why it's important to live life with joy every day and to not take life so serious. Funny, I had a conversation with both, because I see therapists for different things. We don't have to get into that. But like the common theme of therapy for me recently has been just to kind of not take things so serious and to just kind of enjoy the positivity and the joy that life brings. Because at the end of the day, as Sylvester kind of embodies, that you only have one opportunity to really show off and be who you are. His life ended shortly and tragically from HIV/AIDS, I believe. But that just speaks to something that's so inspirational to me as a queer black person that lives in the Midwest, who kind of always lived with this idea of wanting to live up to expectations of others. And I think this year in 2026, I can let go a little bit of that. So let's start doing that. Another person that kind of brings me some joy and is somebody who I would say kind of embodies a little bit of that, inspiration for me is RuPaul. And the amount of things I could say about RuPaul is abundant. So I'm going to keep it short because I'm going to do another segment on another episode about RuPaul's impact on modern America and on history. But RuPaul built this empire, right? So she's a queen, she's an entrepreneur, she's a bad bitch, she's a boss. And she's never had to shrink or apologize to or fit this box of anyone other than mainstream media, whatever the requirements are for that. But he has always taught us that you should just be who you are and it's no one else's business. You know what I mean? And if they have a problem with that, then maybe they should be paying your bills. If they're not paying your bills, pay those bitches no mind. And I think that's super important and something that RuPaul has always embodied. And I think a lot of conservative people can learn a lot from RuPaul because they live life with judgment. Some conservatives don't, but I think a lot of conservatives, especially the evangelical closet cases, those ones, they could learn a lot from RuPaul because I feel like when you live authentically as who you are, you don't need to apologize for anything. You could just show up and be yourself authentically. And if people aren't making your life better in any way, they really don't matter. So this government needs to stop fucking with people who are less than or who they feel are less than them because they feel that that's what they need to do. But that's a different story. I think RuPaul embodies the fact that when you let go of other people's expectations of what you should be and who you are, you make room for your own evolution and your own ability to be better or become and just be and exist. And lastly, I would say the last point of inspiration for me would be myself. You know, sometimes you have to choose yourself, and sometimes you have to choose what that looks like for you. So I've built a life rooted in compassion and advocacy and truth-telling and being authentic and being real and just kind of going with the flow and being cool with anyone. But I think in 2025, I learned a lot about, you know, setting boundaries and adjusting based off what's appropriate for my mental health. And, you know, I have to show up for my students, for my clients, my community, and my husband and pets. And I think that's all important in regards to not letting things get to me and not thinking that letting go and not thinking that I have to worry constantly about everything is something that's going to serve me. You know, it's actually more wisdom when you let go, and it's not a sign of weakness. And I think, you know, I give myself some inspiration because I can know I'm no longer letting certain people access my spirit or my energy. And I'm going to bring that into 2026 because so far it has served me pretty damn well. So I appreciate all of you. I think that this podcast is something that is going to be worthwhile. It's going to be a rocky year. So please stay listening to Clark the Tea with Dr. Long. I am going to be bringing you fresh new concepts, fresh topics, and of course politics every chance I get. But most importantly, come for the tea, but stay for the, you know, the stuff that falls out the cup. Take care.